No one cares about you as much as you do. This is not meant to hurt you, but it is a truth that has existed since humanity first walked in society. What you go through, pain, joy, hope, or disappointment, carries true weight only for you. Others may listen, they may see, they may briefly react, but then they return to their own journeys, to the worries and pressures they must bear. You may believe the world is watching your every step, but the harsh truth is that most people will not even remember. Those around you are busy with their own stories. Your colleagues are not staying up at night thinking about your choices. Your friends are not secretly tracking every success or failure of yours. Even your loved ones can only devote a limited portion of their minds to you, and that is not because they are careless, but because life simply functions that way. Instead of seeing this as a tragedy, see it as liberation, because if no one really cares that much about you, it means you do not have to live like a performer. You are no longer bound by the shallow gaze of the crowd. You are free to return to yourself, to listen to reason, and to act according to inner principles. The biggest mistake many people make is the illusion of an audience. They believe every step, every decision is being judged by others. As a result, they live in fear, in hesitation, unwilling to step beyond the limits of safety. But think about it. How many times have you obsessed over a small mistake of yours, while the rest of the world has long forgotten? What kept you awake for nights was, for others, nothing more than a fleeting moment in memory. The Stoics understood this well. They did not deny the existence of others, but they knew that no one could replace the responsibility of living on their behalf. Waiting for the world's concern only leads to disappointment. But when you realize that you are the only one who can and must care the most about yourself, you begin to act differently. You stop seeking validation from the outside, and you start to find strength within. Placing your entire worth in the eyes of others is a form of slavery. You become a puppet of praise and criticism, letting fleeting reactions dictate your inner peace. But if you dare cut that string, you regain mastery. You no longer live to please an audience, but to remain honest with your own conscience. Ask yourself, asterisk, if no one knew about this action, would I still do it? Asterisk, if the answer is yes, it means you have stepped out of the trap of performance. You act for what is right, for real value, not for applause, and it is in that silence that your strength begins to be forged. Today's world is full of people desperate for attention. They shout into the void of social media, longing to be seen, longing to be recognized. But that attention is fleeting, shallow, and easily replaced. The Stoics did not seek that. They built themselves in silence, where there was no audience, where no fireworks were needed, because they knew that true value does not lie in noise, but in the solidity of the inner self. You will notice an interesting truth. When you stop chasing the gaze of others, you begin to truly see yourself. When you no longer perform, you finally live. And in that authenticity, you discover the peace the outside world cannot grant. The Stoics remind us that the concern of others will always be limited, but the concern you have for yourself must never be. If you do not care for your mind, if you do not train your resilience, if you do not build your principles, no one else can do it for you. This is a hard truth, but it is the foundation of liberation. Because when you end the illusion of the world's concern, you are free to focus on what truly matters, becoming a person of principle, of strength, and of peace. And in that stillness, you will realize no one needs to care as much as you imagine, so long as you care enough to stand firm and keep moving forward. No one is coming to save you. No hand will reach out at the perfect moment to pull you out of the abyss. There will be no golden opportunity or unexpected grace that resolves all your struggles. The illusion that the world owes you salvation is the very chain that binds your spirit and paralyzes your inner strength. People easily fall into the habit of waiting for a guide, a favorable chance, some external sign that permits them to change. But while you wait, time silently slips away. The world does not pause until you are ready. There is no such thing as a perfect tomorrow. And if you do not rise, no one can walk in your place. The Stoics saw abandoning the illusion of rescue as the starting point of freedom, because only when you stop expecting do you truly face reality. No more empty promises, no more blaming circumstances, no more hollow hopes. Only one simple truth remains: you are the only one who can change your destiny. Those who live in illusion often breed bitterness. They believe they are owed help, owed understanding, owed support. When it does not come, they resent the world, despise others, and trap themselves in a cycle of dissatisfaction. But the Stoics knew that life promises nothing: no love, no fairness, no success. And precisely because nothing is promised, every achievement earned through effort holds real value. Strength only begins when you stop waiting. When you take responsibility, you stop expecting someone else to carry the burden and learn to brace yourself and stand tall. Instead of wishing life would be lighter, you train your back to grow stronger. Instead of begging the river to be calmer, you learn to row through its currents. That difference creates the distance between the passive and the master. There are moments when you think that if only someone understood, everything would be easier. But ask yourself, is there truly anyone who can fully grasp your mind? Is there anyone willing to abandon their own journey to carry yours? The answer is always no. Each person is struggling with their own battles. Expecting them to rescue you is no different from asking a drowning man to swim on your behalf. This truth does not make you lonely. It makes you mature. Because in the moment you realize no one is coming to save you, you also realize you do not need to wait. You can begin immediately. And with each solitary step, your inner strength grows, forging you into someone unshaken by the indifference of the world. The trap of the rescue illusion lies in delay. You believe the conditions are not ready, the timing is not right, the companion has not arrived. And so you postpone, day after day. But that very delay is the thief of opportunity. The Stoics knew clearly. Perfect conditions exist only in imagination. Life is always messy, always imperfect. If you do not act amid imperfection, you will never act at all. Remember, no one owes you help. If someone chooses to help, be grateful, but never turn it into an expectation. If no one helps, walk on your own, for that is the natural order. When this mindset becomes a principle, you free yourself from blame and resentment. You stop asking, "Why is no one coming?" and start asking, "What must I do right now?" The Stoics found strength in mastering thought and action. They understood that peace does not come from outside rescue, but from no longer being dependent on it. They may fall, they may hurt, but they rise again, because they know there is no one else but themselves. True strength is born when you end the illusion and begin to act. No longer wishing the world would soften, but training your mind to grow steadier. No longer hoping for less burden, but strengthening your shoulders to bear more. No longer yearning for a hand to pull you from the dark, but lighting your own torch to see the path ahead. That is the moment you cease to be a victim of fate. You become the one who shapes fate. And from that day, strength no longer comes from promises or pity from others, but from your own discipline, resilience, and courage. No one is coming to save you, and that is not a tragedy. It is a gift. Because when no one saves you, you are forced to rise. And when you rise, you realize you had the strength all along. The crowd is always noisy, always changing, and always judgmental. If you live to please them, you will exhaust yourself and still never find peace. Today they may praise, tomorrow they may forget, and soon after they may turn their backs in criticism. The opinion of the masses is always unstable, but reason is not. The Stoic chooses to build life on the foundation of reason, not on the fragile gaze of others. Living for the crowd's gaze is to lose yourself. For the sake of praise, you will bend your principles. For the sake of recognition, you will trade away honesty. Each time you ask yourself, asterisk, what will people think? Asterisk, you hand over the power to decide your life to someone else. But the truth is, they rarely think about you for that long. Everyone is busy with their own journey, their own fears, goals, and desires. Placing your identity in such fleeting attention is an immense waste. The Stoic does not deny the role of community. They still live, work, love, and contribute. But they do not seek recognition as nourishment for the spirit. They do not let their souls starve for nods of approval. The only thing they pursue is harmony with reason, the inner compass that never betrays them. In meditations, there is a striking note. Asterisk. We love ourselves more than anyone else, but we value the opinions of others more than our own thoughts. Asterisk. That is the paradox humanity has repeated for thousands of years. The Stoic is the opposite. They love themselves by remaining faithful to reason, not by chasing praise or criticism. The crowd often acts on collective emotion. A rumor can enrage thousands, a trend can sweep millions. Yet all such waves quickly fade. If you place your life within them, you will be carried away and never find shore. The Stoic observes the waves but does not let them carry him off. He knows the surface of the sea is always restless, but deep below lies stillness, and he chooses to anchor himself in that stillness. Living by reason means living by principle, regardless of others' gaze. You choose what is right, not what is easy. You choose truth, even if it leaves you isolated. For temporary, loneliness is easier to bear than betraying yourself. The crowd may not understand, may ridicule, may turn away, but reason will always make you clear. And in that clarity, you find peace that 1,000 applauses could never give. The modern world has turned performance into habit. Social media makes each person an actor on stage, always craving attention, always longing for cheers. But the spotlight only drains us. When the performance ends, what remains is emptiness. The Stoic understands what matters is not to be seen, but to become. And to become, one must train in silence, persist with steadiness, and stand firm even when no one is watching. Place your life in the crowd's gaze, and you will live in constant anxiety. Place your life in reason, and you will find freedom. Freedom from judgment, freedom from the need to prove yourself, freedom to do what is right even when it is not applauded. And that freedom is the peace so many seek but so few grasp. Ask yourself, asterisk, do I act because it is right or because I want to be seen? Asterisk. If the answer leans toward the gaze, you have strayed. If the answer comes from reason, then step forward without hesitation. For the crowd will forget, but you will live with your conscience every single day. The Stoic chooses this way of living, calm amidst chaos, steady in solitude, resolute even in obscurity. They do not seek noise, but they leave behind a quiet, enduring strength, the strength of a person who lives by reason, not by the fleeting gaze of the world. The world is always unstable. It never stops shifting, never stops creating unexpected waves. Today may appear calm, tomorrow may bring crisis. A piece of news, an event, a sudden occurrence beyond your control is enough to sweep away all the plans you hold. If you place your peace in the hands of the world, you will live forever in anxiety. The Stoics understood, you cannot make the world stop being chaotic, but you can learn to keep your mind still amidst the chaos. The storm outside is beyond your control, but how you receive it is entirely your choice. That mastery of the inner self is the true source of peace. People often mistake peace as coming from favorable circumstances, a stable job, secure finances, smooth relationships. Yet even when all these conditions are present, Some remain restless, anxious, and uncertain, because peace is never born from external conditions. It only arises when you learn how to govern the world within. Observe. When someone insults you, you grow angry, but in truth, you are the one who allowed those words to pierce your mind. When plans collapse, you despair. But failure is just an event. Despair is the response you chose. The outside world always throws countless scenarios at you, but only when you surrender your inner control do you let those scenarios steal your calm. The Stoic treats the mind as a fortress. Outside may be chaotic, but inside must be firm. Outside may rage with waves, but inside must remain still. They do not wait for the storm to end in order to feel peace. They practice peace in the midst of the storm. For if peace only exists when all is calm, it is not true peace, but a fragile illusion. A mind trained to be strong cannot be stolen by praise or blame. It does not sway under fleeting applause, nor collapse under criticism. It knows all such sounds are merely external noise, powerless to touch the inner core. And from that separation, peace becomes an indestructible possession. Picture the world as the ocean. The surface is always in turmoil, but the deeper you go, the calmer the water. The Stoic learns to live at that depth. They do not deny the waves, but they do not let the waves define them. They make the mind the anchor, so that no matter how fierce the storm, the vessel remains steady. Peace of mind is not indifference. It is not avoidance or neglect. On the contrary, it is the highest clarity. For when you remain calm, you see the situation clearly. You distinguish what is within your control and what is not. The one who loses calm often acts on impulse, worsening the matter. The one who remains calm acts with reason, and thus transforms chaos into an opportunity for strength. Each day, you will face what goes against you. A mocking word, an unexpected event, an unforeseen failure. If you let instinct dominate, you will react harshly, lose control, and ultimately lose yourself. But if you pause, breathe, observe, and let reason guide you, you will remain steady. That is the peace no one can take from you. The most important truth: the world has no obligation to be gentle with you. It will continue to be chaotic, to change, to throw new challenges your way. If you still wait for a perfect world before you can feel peace, you will never find it. But if you train to find peace amidst chaos, you will never lose it. Remember, peace is a skill, not a gift. It is forged through small choices: the choice not to react immediately, the choice to observe instead of judge, the choice of reason over impulse. Each time, you are laying another brick in your inner fortress. One day, you will stand in the storm and still feel calm, because your fortress has grown strong enough. No one can grant you peace. No circumstance can guarantee it for you. It only comes when you accept the responsibility of mastering your mind. And then you will see, no matter how chaotic the world becomes, it does not matter, for true stillness has always been within your control. People often believe they are living under the gaze of an invisible audience. We walk as if someone is observing, we speak as if someone is judging, and we make decisions as if all eyes are fixed on us. This belief seeps into the subconscious, turning us into actors in a play of our own making. But the harsh truth is this: that audience does not exist. The world does not have time to watch you so closely. Everyone carries their own burdens, absorbed in their own worries and ambitions. You may appear in someone's mind for a fleeting moment, only to vanish like smoke. What you thought was lasting concern is nothing more than a passing flicker of attention. And yet, countless people allow that fleeting attention to dictate their lives. The trap of the invisible audience lies in the constant fear it creates. You hesitate to take a different step for fear of judgment. You waver before major choices because you fear gossip. You suppress your dreams out of dread of being mocked. But face the truth: most people do not think about you nearly as much as you imagine. They are too occupied with themselves. And judgment, if it comes at all, is brief and quickly forgotten. The Stoics regarded the illusion of an audience as a chain. It robs you of authenticity and steals the chance for growth. Each time you stop yourself just because of what others might think, you have already turned your back on your own reason. You hand the power over your life to a crowd that does not truly exist. Look closely. The crowd does not follow you as much as you believe. Colleagues do not lie awake at night thinking about your decisions. Old friends are not constantly comparing their paths with yours. Even those closest to you can only spare you a limited share of their attention. You are not the center of the universe in their eyes, and yet, in your own mind, you turn them into relentless judges. The Stoic chooses to break that myth. They do not perform because they know no one is watching. They do not pour energy into making impressions because impressions fade quickly. They devote all their energy to living in accordance with principle. Their actions do not need to be seen to hold meaning. The very rightness and discipline of those actions are what make them valuable. Ask yourself, if no one knew, would I still do this? If there were no audience, would I still persevere? The answer will expose your true motives. If you act only to be witnessed, you are still living in illusion. But if you continue even in silence, that is inner strength. The invisible audience also robs creativity. When you act to impress, you begin reshaping yourself to please others. Ideas become bent, decisions distorted, dreams diminished. You trade your identity for fleeting approval. But the Stoic understands, the crowd's approval does not nourish the soul. Only honesty with reason can do that. The crowd will forget, but your conscience will not. Today's applause or criticism will vanish tomorrow, but whether you betrayed or stayed true to yourself will endure. The Stoic chooses to place weight on what lasts, not on what fades. Look at the ancient sages. They lived simply, without show, without seeking the spotlight. They did not care about an audience, for they knew life is not a performance. Life is a process of training, and the true stage lies within the mind. There resides the only witness who matters, your conscience. When you abandon the myth of the audience, liberation occurs. You no longer live to impress, you live to grow. You no longer worry about being misunderstood, you focus on doing what is right. And when the performance ends, the real work begins. The quiet labor of building character, cultivating discipline, and becoming a steadfast human being. That is how the Stoic lives, for reason, not for the gaze, not to be remembered, but to become worthy of remembrance in their own eyes. And that is the true value that does not need an audience to exist. We often imagine that the eyes of others, their gossip, or their judgments hold tremendous weight over our lives. But if you look closely, the truth is the opposite. Most people glance at you briefly and then immediately sink back into their own stories. They are too busy with their personal worries, fears, expectations, and desires to keep you in mind for long. And if they do remember, it is only like a fleeting flash in a quickly fading memory. Here lies a strange paradox. We spend our youth fearing judgment, scrutiny, and ridicule, while most others do not care nearly as much as we think. They may notice you for a few seconds, perhaps make a comment, but soon after they return to their own concerns. You are only a passing detail in the vast canvas of their lives. Realizing this can free you from the invisible pressure you have been carrying all along. When you believe others are watching your every step, you live inside a cage. You constantly adjust your words, your actions, even your dreams, just to please them. But the painful truth is that even when you do so, they still forget you quickly. Their attention is like a passing breeze, strong in one moment, gone without a trace the next. So why would you sacrifice your identity, bury your truth deep inside, just to buy a few seconds of existence in someone else's mind? There is a famous psychological study on the spotlight effect. Participants often believed that everyone around them was paying close attention to their every gesture, every mistake. But in reality, the level of observation was only a fraction of what they imagined. We exaggerate the spotlight shining on us, while to others, we are only a passing shadow. Understanding this brings immense relief. You do not need to carry masks that were never yours to wear. Remember that every gaze is short-lived. Others must return to their unpaid bills, unfinished work, families to care for, and their own hidden pains. You are not the eternal center of their universe. You are merely a passing fragment. Yet this truth itself is a gift. It gives you the freedom to live true to yourself. Because if others will forget you so quickly, why not dare to be yourself from the very beginning? Imagine walking into a crowded room. You think every eye is fixed on you, dissecting every detail. But in reality, they are thinking the same thing. Is someone judging me right now? And so the room is full of people convinced they are being observed, while in truth, no one has the capacity to watch anyone for too long. What makes you memorable is not your efforts to avoid ridicule. On the contrary, it is in the moments when you dare to show your true nature, when you live with passion and difference, that others might retain a faint image of you. But even then, that memory remains temporary. So do not build your entire life on the temporary memory of others. When you realize that attention is fleeting, fear begins to fade. You see that your failure today, a careless word you spoke, even a major mistake in life, is not as heavy as you believed. People may gossip, laugh, or criticize, but soon enough they must return to their own lives. Only you are left to face yourself. And that truth alone should remind you, do not live to be remembered, live so you have no regrets. Think back to the moments when you thought the whole world was focused on you. Do you now remember the details about others in the same situation? Do you recall what they wore, what they said, or how they stumbled? The answer is usually no. Then why believe others will etch your image into memory forever? They forget you quickly, just as you forget them quickly. That is the natural order. When you free yourself from the illusion of being the center, you begin to focus on what matters, your own path. You are no longer restrained by the fear of ridicule or the desire for approval. You start channeling energy into becoming the best version of yourself. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to be remembered, you end up leaving a deeper mark on those who truly matter. The truth that others will forget you quickly is not meant to make you cynical. It is a reminder that you do not need to perform, that you do not need to live exhausted trying to meet fleeting glances. You can walk your path boldly, because even if you stumble, no one will hold on to that memory for long. What you must keep is not the impression in the eyes of others, but the truth in your own eyes. That is what will stay with you until the end of life. And once you understand this, each step you take becomes lighter, each decision more confident, because you know that no one has the power to hold you in their memory forever, except yourself. There is no trap more dangerous than turning your entire life into a stage where you no longer live for yourself, but only to be seen by others. Recognition becomes your breath, praise turns into food, while your true self is left behind in the backstage. The price of chasing the gaze of others is not only spiritual exhaustion, but also the loss of who you truly are. Human beings naturally crave recognition. From childhood, we learn to seek nods, smiles, or words of praise to know we are doing right. But as you step into life, if you allow external approval to become your only motivation, you will be imprisoned in the invisible cage of society's expectations. Every step, every choice, every word must be measured against whether it pleases the crowd. You live as if you are an actor who must always stay in character until you forget who you really are. The danger lies in the fact that the gaze of others is never enough to fill you. Today you may be celebrated, tomorrow you may be ignored or criticized. And when that happens, you find yourself disoriented, scrambling to adjust in order to fit the new expectations. Life turns into an endless race where you no longer know what you are truly aiming for, only that you must keep running so as not to be left behind. Another price is that you begin to live in division. One part of you is always smiling, polished, displaying the best image. But deep inside, you are full of fear, doubt, and the longing to simply be yourself. That division drains you. Because maintaining an image is not the same as living authentically, it consumes far more energy. And the longer it continues, the more you lose connection with your inner voice. The irony is that the more external recognition you receive, the greater the emptiness within becomes. You are seen, but not understood, admired, but not truly touched, present everywhere, yet your soul has no place to rest. That is the harshest price. You lose authenticity, and with it, you lose freedom. You must understand that no light shines brighter than the light born from authenticity. When you live true to yourself, you may lose a few admiring looks, but in exchange, you gain inner peace. When you dare to refuse living just to please everyone, you finally have the chance to meet those who truly value the real you. There is a subtle yet vital distinction. Being seen does not equal being recognized, and being recognized does not equal being loved. If you keep trading away your truth just to be noticed, you will never know real love, the kind that only arrives when you reveal your true essence. Living authentically is not easy. It demands courage to accept that not everyone will like you, not everyone will agree with you. But it is precisely the disapproval of others that frees you from the invisible cage. It helps you distinguish shallow relationships from genuine connections. And gradually, you will see, authenticity is the only true measure of a life worth living. The price of living to be seen is losing truth, but the reward of living true is liberation. When you stop performing, you begin to live. When you stop fearing the loss of the gaze, you regain the inner eyes. And in that moment, you realize, authenticity is not just a choice, but the only path to freedom and lasting happiness. There is a trap many fall into without even realizing it. Living as though they are on stage, always performing to earn the approval of others. Every step, every word, every decision is controlled by the question, what will people think of me? But life is not a performance, and the crowd is not an audience you must please. When you live only to impress, you unknowingly give up the greatest freedom. The freedom to live true to yourself, and the freedom to pursue real improvement. If you pay attention, you will see a paradox. The more people try to impress, the more empty and exhausted they feel. Because their efforts do not come from the desire to truly improve themselves, but from the pressure to maintain an image. They buy things they do not need, say words they do not really believe, and chase goals that have no true meaning, all for the sake of applause. The price of this performance is the loss of authenticity, the very foundation of inner peace. On the other hand, when you shift from performance to purpose, everything begins to change. You no longer wake up thinking about what you must do today to win praise, but instead ask, how can I be better than I was yesterday? This question is simple, yet powerful enough to steer the entire course of life. It frees you from the cycle of comparison and places you on a path of continuous growth where each day is a true step forward, not a fabricated act. Remember that others only see the surface, but you are the one responsible for the foundation. A house cannot stand firm just because the facade looks good. It needs deep and solid groundwork. Your life is the same. True value does not lie in fleeting impressions, but in lasting change. Others may applaud a moment, but only you know whether you are truly becoming stronger, wiser, and more mature. Living to improve means daring to walk a path often unnoticed. It is reading another chapter while others are busy with entertainment. It is practicing discipline when there is no audience cheering. It is upholding moral standards even when no one is watching. Each small action may not bring applause, but it brings accumulation, and that accumulation transforms you into someone respected even without display. The interesting thing is that when you stop performing and focus on purpose, the very things you once chased to impress begin to appear naturally. Others start to admire you, not because you tried to show them, but because you truly radiate certainty, confidence, and inner value. A person of purpose needs no proof. Their presence alone is evidence. You must ask yourself, do I want to leave an impression or a legacy? An impression lasts only seconds, but a legacy endures for a lifetime. If you live only for today's admiration, tomorrow you will be scrambling again for attention. But if you live to improve, each step forward, no matter how small, adds up to a lasting legacy no one can deny. Shifting from performance to purpose is not easy, because human instinct craves recognition. But wisdom teaches that true recognition does not come from outside, it comes from knowing you are on the right path. Each time you do what is right for your growth, you do not need applause. Your own heart already feels respect for yourself. And that self-respect is the greatest strength to carry you onward. Set a principle for yourself. Every action, every decision must answer the question, does this make me better than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, do it, regardless of whether anyone sees. If the answer is no, stop, even if it might bring a moment of attention. This is the only way to ensure your life is truly moving forward, instead of sliding endlessly through roles you were never meant to play. In the end, remember this. Performance may draw light for a moment, but purpose is what lights up an entire life. Do not live to be an impressive show. Live to be living proof that a human being can improve and rise every day. In doing so, you not only build a life of strength, but also inspire those who dare to live authentically, who dare to choose the harder road, the road of improvement instead of impression. One of the most dangerous illusions many people carry within themselves is the belief that this world, this society, or someone out there owes them something. It is called entitlement. The assumption that you deserve to receive without sowing, without building, without striving. It is like stepping into a field without planting a single seed, then becoming angry when nothing grows. The harsh truth is this: life does not owe you an explanation, an opportunity, or an outcome. Even if you have endured great loss, suffered injustice, or borne pain caused by others, life does not automatically compensate you. The only thing you can be certain of is this: you will receive equal to or less than what you create. The illusion of entitlement drives people into two dangerous states. One is anger and bitterness when results do not arrive as expected. The other is passivity, the refusal to act, because of the belief that everything will arrive by some imagined fairness. But that fairness exists only in books. In reality, no one cares about your expectations nearly that much. If you think you deserve to be rewarded simply because you tried, you will be disappointed. The world does not pay for effort, it only pays for results. If you think that simply being a good person will guarantee fair treatment, you will be shocked. People do not look into your heart to measure goodwill. They look at the value you bring to them. If you think that after long suffering happiness will automatically come, you will collapse. For happiness does not come from passive endurance, but from active action. The most dangerous trap of entitlement is that it makes you a permanent victim. When you believe the world owes you, you constantly look at what is missing, constantly blame, constantly compare. You no longer focus on what you can do, but waste your energy waiting for an imaginary debt to be repaid. And the longer you wait, the more dissatisfied and stuck you become. On the other hand, when you discard entitlement, you discover something extraordinary. Every opportunity, every reward is a gift. not anyone's obligation to you. And as with any gift, you must create enough value to be worthy of receiving it. This mindset helps you live with more gratitude, more humility, and more practical action. There is a subtle yet decisive difference. You deserve happiness, but happiness does not come simply because you exist. You deserve success, but success does not come simply because you wish for it. You only truly gain these things when you create solid reasons for life to grant them to you. In other words, you have no right to demand. You only have the right to create. Look back at the successful people you admire. Their common trait is not that they believed the world owed them, but that they always saw their own responsibility. When they failed, they did not complain, "Life is unfair," but asked, "What am I lacking? What must I do next?" When they were rejected, they did not grow bitter, saying, "People don't appreciate me," but focused instead on, "How can I make my value undeniable next time?" Meanwhile, those who live in the illusion of entitlement often drown in waiting. They hope the government will take care of them, the company will recognize them, their partner will make up for them. But they forget. No one is free to live life on your behalf. No one has the time to compensate for the shortcomings that only you can take responsibility for. Breaking free from the illusion of entitlement is the first step to true maturity. It teaches you that no one is coming to save you, no rewards are handed out for free, and no fairness guarantees you a happy ending. But precisely because of this, you possess an immense power, the power to create with your own hands and your own mind. The day you stop thinking, "Life owes me," is the day you begin to experience true freedom. For at that moment, you are no longer bound by empty expectations, but are freed to channel all your energy into creating real value. And the paradoxical yet beautiful truth is this: when you no longer demand, life ends up giving you more. You see, this world does not owe you anything, but you owe yourself one thing: to live with worth, to give your best, and to create a life that never needs to beg from anyone. Throughout the journey of life, there is a truth many avoid. No one has ever promised you that this life would be fair, easy, or full of rewards. All the sweet scenarios you wait for recognition, the right opportunity, protection from someone, are never guaranteed. And within that harshness, if you dare to face it directly, you will discover an extraordinary kind of freedom, the freedom of no longer expecting, only acting and taking ownership. The first truth you must accept is that no one owes you anything. The world does not operate to fulfill your private dreams. If you fall, it will not bend down to lift you. If you strive, it will not immediately scatter flowers along your path. The most successful people never bet their lives on pity or a predetermined arrangement. They only bet on themselves. That is not cruelty, but absolute fairness. Everyone has an equal chance in choosing their attitude, their actions, and their persistence. When you let go of the illusion that the world owes you something, you break free from an invisible chain. Many live their whole lives in resentment because they believe they should have been given opportunities, that life should have been kinder. But that very should is the greatest shackle. Once you erase the word should, the sky opens wide. No more waiting, only creating and building. This harshness also teaches you another lesson: every achievement has a price. You cannot have health without discipline in eating and training. You cannot have a sustainable career without stepping into difficulty where challenges erode your will. You cannot demand respect if you have not yet learned to respect yourself. When you understand that nothing will ever be handed to you for free, only then will you be willing to sow, persistent enough to nurture, and truly worthy to reap. From within that cold view, something miraculous emerges. You become stronger, because when you no longer expect guarantees, you are ready to face uncertainty. When you no longer depend on promises, you focus fully on action. And when you no longer believe someone else will rescue you, You become the one who rescues yourself. That is a power no one can ever take from you. Remember, reality does not promise you success, but it gives you a right no one can strip away, the right to try, the right to act, the right to fail, and the right to rise again. Those who accept this harshness are often the ones who go the farthest, because they waste no energy on complaints or expectations, but pour it all into moving forward. Reality is harsh, but it is also liberating, because it puts you in the only position that matters. Either you create your life, or you are swallowed by it. Nothing is promised, but everything is possible if you choose to act. This is life's great paradox. When you stop waiting for guarantees, you find the only true guarantee, the indestructible ability within you to create. So do not ask life to be gentle with you. Let it be harsh. Let it forge you. Because within that very harshness, you will learn to stand without support, to walk without anyone clearing the path, and to master your destiny without needing a single promise from the world. Maturity is not about age, nor about how many times you have stumbled, but about how you respond when what you desire does not happen. Many enter life expecting that everything will follow their plan, that effort will always bring a worthy reward, that sincerity will always be returned with sincerity. But reality rarely follows such a script. The friend you trust may leave, the job you poured your heart into may collapse overnight, and kindness is not always recognized. This is the greatest test that distinguishes those who have truly matured. The unsteady will sit blaming fate, tormenting themselves, or resenting others. But the mature understand that expectation is a burden. The more you demand fairness or reciprocation, the easier you are to be disappointed. And one of the clearest signs of maturity is letting go of that illusion, not to become indifferent, but to walk lighter. Accepting reality does not mean passivity. It is not the resignation of life is this way, so let it be. Acceptance means facing directly what is present, whether loss, pain, or adversity. It is the moment you stop arguing with the truth, stop asking, why me, and instead shift to, what will I do next from here? When you accept, you release energy from the vicious cycle of blame and channel it into practical action. Recall the times you suffered simply because others did not act as you expected. In truth, the problem was not with them, but with the expectations you placed. You wanted them to care, to value, to recognize, but in reality, everyone is ruled by their own world. When you release the need to control how others respond, you regain inner freedom, and that freedom is the foundation for acting wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Maturity also lies in balancing dreams with reality. You can set big goals, you can envision a promising future, but what you must do today is always tied to the reality at hand. The immature often wait for favorable conditions before acting. The mature know that it is action within this imperfect reality that creates opportunity. You do not need to wait for clear skies to set sail, for your boat was built to weather the waves. When you act from acceptance, your steps become steadier. You are no longer in a rush to prove yourself, nor frantic to demand immediate results. You act because it must be done, not because victory is guaranteed. And paradoxically, it is that persistence that leads you to lasting success. True success does not belong to those who cling to expectations, but to those who can adapt, who endure patiently, and who focus on what they can control. There are moments when accepting reality feels like swallowing a bitter pill, but that pill frees you from illusion. You may cry, you may feel defeated, but once the wave has passed, you suddenly find yourself standing stronger. Pain teaches you the lesson that life owes you nothing, and that you alone are responsible for creating a life of worth. True maturity means not sitting and waiting for others to change so you can be happy. You change yourself to find your own happiness. You do not wait for the world to be fair before being fair, but you choose to live with integrity even when the world is unjust. You do not need anyone to certify your value, because you have already acknowledged it yourself. It is a silent yet powerful liberation, letting go of expectations, accepting reality, and acting in the present. That path is not easy, but once you walk it, you will feel a new source of strength, strength that depends on no one, unshaken by change. That is the unshakable foundation of a truly mature soul. Everything in your life can be taken away, your possessions, your job, your reputation, even the relationships you thought were unshakable. But there is one kingdom no one can invade, no thief can ever steal: your mind. This is the hidden land, the source of every decision, every action, and every outcome in life. If you let it run wild, filled with the weeds of fear, doubt, and anger, your life will reflect that same chaos. But if you know how to care for it, govern it, and sow within it the seeds of wisdom, discipline, and faith, you will possess the power to create an entirely new life. Many spend their entire lives managing money, managing work, managing people, yet neglect the management of their own mind. They chase external control, but leave the inner world at the mercy of habit, instinct, and circumstance. They fail to see that their greatest enemy is not out there, but inside their head: the repeated thoughts, the limiting self-talk, the dark images they nurture day after day. The mind follows one rule: it never stands still. If you do not lead it, it will be led automatically by the noise of the environment, the media, and those around you. That is why true freedom begins when you take the reins. And this is a task no one can do in your place. Think about it. Each thought you allow into your mind is like a seed. Some seeds bear sweet fruit, willpower, hope, discipline, love, but others are poisonous: fear, envy, resentment. If you are not aware, you will let those harmful seeds take root, spread, and eventually turn the inner garden into a wasteland of weeds. One day you look back and wonder why your life has been trapped in cycles of exhaustion, disappointment, and helplessness. Managing the mind is both a discipline and an art. First, you must cultivate the habit of observing it. When a negative thought arises, do not immediately identify with it. See it as a cloud drifting across the sky. It is only a signal, not your essence. That very distance gives you the strength to choose. Will you nurture it or let it pass? Second, you must sow seeds deliberately. Do not only defend, attack. Every morning, spend a few minutes affirming what you want to cultivate. I am capable. I can control my responses. I focus on what I can do. These affirmations are like water and sunlight for the good seeds. Repeated long enough, they grow into new roots. Third, you must cultivate the environment. The mind cannot grow strong if you constantly feed it toxic news, negative conversations, endless complaints. Choose carefully what you read, hear, and watch each day, for that is the nutrition of your inner soil. The more you expose yourself to sources of light, the more order and strength your inner world will have. Above all, you must remember this is a silent and ongoing battle. There is no permanent victory, only daily practice. You may be clear-minded today, but tomorrow, an unexpected storm will test you. The question is, are you prepared enough so that your mind does not collapse before the wind? The ancients said, "He who conquers himself is the greatest victor." When you master your mind, you not only save yourself from inner chaos, but you also become the shaper of destiny. From this kingdom, you can build everything else: career, family, finances, health. On the other hand, if you let this kingdom fall into the hands of others, old habits, social pressures, or short-term temptations, then all external efforts are nothing more than castles built on sand. Look around you. How many intelligent, talented people still live in stagnation, not because they lack opportunity, but because they cannot govern their own kingdom? And how many ordinary people, no more gifted than you, build admirable lives simply because they protect their mind, choose their thoughts, and thus shape their reality. You cannot change the past, you cannot control everyone else, but you can always choose how to think in the present. And from this moment on, you can become the true king of the only kingdom you truly own, your mind. Are you ready? For when you begin to rule this kingdom with wisdom, discipline, and faith, the entire outer world will reflect that power back to you. And that is the most enduring power no one can ever take away from you. There is a bitter truth that few dare to face. Most of us are not defeated by external adversity, but by the chaos within. The noise of the world, the comments of others, the fleeting storms of emotion, all of these can easily seize control if you allow them an opening. And when that happens, you are no longer the driver of your life, but merely a passenger swept along by the random current of the world. The danger does not lie in the existence of emotion itself. Emotion is natural. It shows you that you are alive, that your mind and body are still responding. But the danger comes when anger, fear, regret, or fleeting excitement become the decision makers instead of reason. In that moment, every choice you make is no longer rooted in long-term vision, but is simply an impulsive reaction. The inevitable result is regret. Look at modern life, social media, news, arguments, work pressure. All of it is like a raging waterfall of sound and image. You are dragged into the vortex, constantly reacting without time to truly choose. And in that process, you lose the most essential power, the power of inner control. A person who loses external control faces only temporary problems, but a person who loses internal control is carried far away from the path they once intended. Remember, success or failure is not determined in the rare moments of quiet, but in the midst of chaos. When everything around you grows loud, how you respond becomes the true measure of strength. A single rash word can destroy a relationship built over years. A reckless decision can erase months of effort. And conversely, with just one mindful breath, one pause at the right moment, you can transform the entire situation. The real question is not, do you have emotions, but who is controlling whom? Do you control your emotions, or do your emotions control you? If emotions lead, then you will always be manipulated by the outside world. People praise you, you feel joy. People criticize you, you feel despair. People betray you, you collapse. But if you learn to master yourself, you will stand firm, no matter the storm. Inner control does not mean suppression. It is awareness, the ability to see a rising wave of emotion without letting it drown you. You can observe it, name it, breathe through it, and let it pass. Emotions are like clouds drifting across the sky. They only become storms when you identify yourself with them. The greatest danger of losing control is that you turn yourself into a puppet of the world. Others need only press the right button and you explode or break down. The frightening truth is that many live their entire lives this way, never knowing true freedom, the freedom that comes from not being ruled by noise and emotion. You must learn to build an inner space, a place where, no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes, you can still hear your own clarity. This is a realm untouched by noise. It does not come naturally, it must be trained. Each time you choose silence over reaction, you are laying its foundation. Each time you breathe deeply instead of lashing out, you are strengthening it. Imagine someone who can stand in a storm without being shaken. That is not a person who does not feel the wind, but one who knows how to keep their roots firm. You can be the same. But first, you must recognize the price of living a life ruled by emotion, a life endlessly pulled, exhausted, and always drifting away from yourself. In the end, inner control is not only the key to avoiding mistakes, but also the foundation of creativity, strength, and freedom. When you are no longer a slave to noise and emotion, you finally begin to master your life. One of the most profound truths Marcus Aurelius left for future generations is this: asterisk. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Asterisk, this is not merely a piece of philosophical advice, but a compass to guide you through a world full of turbulence, where external circumstances are often beyond anyone's control. The external world is always uncertain. You cannot choose where you were born. You cannot control how others treat you, nor can you stop unexpected storms from arriving. Yet amid all that chaos, there remains a sacred territory that belongs solely to you, your mind. This is where you hold full authority. What to think, how to interpret events, how to respond. Once you master this principle, you realize that prolonged suffering, anger, or despair never come from the events themselves, but from the way you face them. Picture this. Two people lose their jobs. One collapses, surrenders, and drowns in bitterness and resentment. The other sees it as an opportunity to begin a new path, to learn, to rise again. The circumstances are the same, but the outcomes are completely different for one simple reason. Their minds chose to see it differently. This proves that you are the architect of your experience, not the external world. Marcus Aurelius never promised that controlling your mind would spare you from pain. He simply pointed out a simple truth. You cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can adjust your sails to keep moving forward. You cannot make the world gentler, but you can make your mind stronger. Self-mastery in thought and response is the only fortress that nothing can breach if you know how to guard it. This does not mean indifference or resigning yourself to fate. On the contrary, when you understand the limits of external control and the power of inner strength, you act more wisely. You know you cannot command the waves, but you can learn to surf them. You do not waste energy on things beyond your power, but focus on what you can directly influence: your mindset, your actions, your attitude. The more you mature, the clearer it becomes. No one can save you from misery but yourself. External forces may take away many things: your job, your wealth, your reputation, even relationships you once trusted. But you only truly fail when you relinquish power over your own mind. To lose self-control is to hand over the keys to your happiness and peace to a world ruled by randomness. Remember, your mind is like a garden. Leave it unattended, and weeds of negativity will spread and take over. Tend to it with awareness, patience, and faith, and you'll cultivate fertile ground to stand firm through any storm. Controlling the mind is not about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing happened. It is the art of recognizing, observing, and choosing. You can acknowledge sadness or anger, but you do not let them become chains that bind you. In today's world, Marcus Aurelius's teaching is more vital than ever. Social media, news, and relentless competition create countless distractions and external disturbances. Many lose their inner calm over a single comment, a passing glance, or a small setback. But if you remember that control rests within your mind, you will no longer be ruled by outside fluctuations. You become the master, not the victim. Importantly, mastery of the mind is not an innate gift, it is a skill cultivated through practice. Each day, you can train with simple acts. Ask yourself, what can I do right now? Instead of, why is this happening to me? Or when insulted, instead of reacting instantly, you pause, breathe deeply, and choose your response after calm returns. These small moments are where real strength is built. Marcus Aurelius lived under immense pressure, wars, plagues, betrayals, yet he left behind journals filled with clarity about self-mastery. If an emperor, in times of crisis, could remind himself that the mind is the only realm he controlled, then you too can apply this in everyday life. Whenever you find yourself in difficulty, recall his words. Asterisk, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Asterisk, it is like a compass, bringing you back to the safe ground within. From there, you can act more wisely and firmly. The external world will always change, but you can be the unmoved point at its center. Ultimately, what Marcus Aurelius wanted you to grasp is not just a philosophy to read, but a way of life to practice. Start with the smallest details: how you respond to criticism, how you handle failure. If you persevere in this principle, one day you will realize that the external world no longer has the power to disturb you. In that moment, you will have discovered the strength. No circumstance can defeat the strength that lies in your own mind. A person can lose everything: money, status, reputation, even the closest relationships. But there is one thing which, if you do not let others touch it, if you do not allow circumstances to topple it, will always give you the strength to rise again. And that is the inner stronghold. It is not a wall separating you from the world, but an unshakable foundation that allows you to live amid storms without being swept away. The inner stronghold is not built in a single day. It is constructed from each choice you make when facing adversity. When someone insults you, you can react with anger, letting instinct take over. Or you can pause, take a deep breath, and choose calmness. That very moment is a brick laid into your fortress. Every time you restrain yourself, every time you uphold your principles instead of following impulsive emotions, you are building another solid wall. Picture the inner stronghold as an ancient fortress standing in the vast plains. Fierce winds and violent storms may rage outside, but within, the lamps still shine, the fire still warms, and peace remains. Others may bring rumors, criticism, work pressure, or financial hardship to the gates of your fortress, but if your walls are thick enough, they cannot touch your heart. The key is to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. What others think or say you do not control, but you can choose how to respond. If you let the opinions of others dictate your mood, cracks will appear in your fortress. On the other hand, when you understand that emotions lie in your own hands, every challenging situation becomes an exercise to strengthen your inner power. A strong fortress requires 3 pillars: discipline, stillness, and steadfastness. Discipline keeps you from being carried away by impulses. Stillness allows you to listen to yourself amid the noise. Steadfastness helps you stand firm against temptations or pressures. If these 3 qualities are consistently cultivated, you will not only endure but also grow in any circumstance. Do not mistake the inner stronghold for numbness or indifference. A person hardened against pain may think themselves strong, but in truth, it is only avoidance. In contrast, someone with an inner stronghold feels everything fully, but does not let emotions take control. They still know sorrow, still feel pain, but they do not collapse. They still know joy and happiness, but they do not fall into illusion. It is this balance that constitutes true strength. The inner stronghold also grants you the ability to observe the world from a safe distance. When others argue, you need not dive in. When injustice arises, you do not let rage blind your reason. Instead, you respond like someone holding a torch in the night, illuminating, guiding, but not letting the fire spread and consume you. Building the inner stronghold is a lifelong journey. Each day, you will have the chance to choose, either compromise with instinct or elevate yourself a step higher. The more often you choose wisdom, the stronger you become. And at some point, you will realize that storms no longer frighten you because you have become the very mountain that storms cannot move. Ultimately, the inner stronghold is not only for your own protection, but also so that you can become a source of support for others. When those around you falter, it is your calmness and steadfastness that will give them confidence. When the world is in chaos, you are living proof that peace is possible without being swept along. One day, when you look back, you will see that the greatest value you have ever built does not lie in wealth, reputation, or success, but in this invisible fortress, a place you can always return to, where you find peace, and from which you step out to face the world with a strength nothing can break. Have you ever realized that most of the troubles in life do not come from circumstances themselves, but from the way you react? A careless comment, an unexpected incident, a small criticism, all of these can make you angry, sad, or panicked. But the problem does not lie in the event, it lies in your impulsive reaction. In the moment an event occurs, between the external stimulus and your action, there always exists a space. That space is a precious gift most people are unaware of. Ordinary people skip over it, acting immediately on instinct, only to regret later. The awakened person knows how to pause, to use that space to choose a response. And this small difference determines the quality of an entire life. Impulsive reaction is the product of the primitive brain, the part wired for survival, where every situation is seen as a threat that must be resisted. You hear a criticism, your instinct assumes you are being attacked, and you instantly strike back. You face failure, your instinct tells you to run and protect your ego. But to live always by instinct means you let your life be led by outdated programs designed only for survival, not for growth. Conscious response is different. It requires you to recognize that space, to take a deep breath and ask yourself, what truly matters right now? What words will help me move forward instead of making things worse? How should I respond to preserve my character and self-control? The answers come from wisdom, not instinct. And when you choose response over reaction, you open the door to freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is when you are no longer dragged around by sudden emotions, no longer enslaved by anger, fear, or hurt. Freedom is when you have the power to choose your reply, even when someone tries to provoke you, even when life tests you with the most unpleasant situations. Think back to the times you lost your temper. How did you feel afterward? Sometimes regret, sometimes exhaustion, and most often things only got worse. But when you managed to hold back, when you paused for a moment, when you breathed before speaking, didn't you feel stronger? Restraint is not weakness, it is proof of inner strength. To train yourself to respond consciously, start with small situations. When driving and someone cuts you off, instead of honking in anger, notice your body, your heartbeat racing, your breath quickening. Pause for a few seconds, breathe deeply, and let it go. When a colleague says something irritating, try staying silent, count in your head, then reply with calmness. Each small action like this expands the space between stimulus and response, giving you more room to choose. That space is where you reclaim your power, because once you control your response, others can no longer manipulate you. They can say what they want, do what they want, but they cannot decide your mood or your actions. Only you can do that. When you react impulsively, you hand power to others. When you respond consciously, you take that power back. It is the shift of authority from the outside to the inside. And from that moment, you become the master, no longer the victim. Life is full of unexpected situations. You cannot control everything that comes your way, but you can control how you respond. That response is what shapes your path, your relationships, your career, and your very sense of self. So remember, between the event and your action there is always a space. That space may be small, but if you know how to use it, it will be where you create freedom, strength, and dignity. Do not let instinct rule you. Let wisdom speak. And in doing so, you do not just live. You truly master your life. Silence is not emptiness. It is the strength of focus. It is like the pause between two musical notes, the very place where the music truly resonates. In life, the more you know how to preserve silence at the right moments, the clearer you see what truly matters and what is just noise. Those who lack discipline are often swept away by the external clamor, while those who embrace silence cultivate the focus to go further. Discipline is the bridge between silence and results. Without discipline, silence easily turns into laziness. Without silence, discipline easily becomes rigid pressure. When the two are combined, they create a kind of invisible consistency, a power that allows you to sustain progress without noise, without proving yourself. People only see the results, while the entire arduous journey remains hidden behind the veil of silence. There will be moments when you feel the urge to explain to others why you chose this path, why you refuse to follow the crowd. But the truth is, no one really cares as much as you think. Do not waste your energy on proving. Instead, let silence become your strategy, and let daily discipline write the final answer. Success does not come from promises. It comes from the steady repetition of small actions, even when no one is watching. The truly successful let their results speak for them. They do not need noise, nor debate. You will notice that those who truly master themselves often speak less because they understand that words without action are nothing but passing wind. They devote their time to planting seeds, nurturing step by step, while others are still busy boasting. And when those seeds sprout and bloom, the silence before becomes the loudest testimony. To cultivate this invisible consistency, you need discipline on 3 levels. First, discipline in thought, not letting your mind be consumed by worries or distractions. Second, discipline in action, doing the work each day, however small, even if no one knows. Third, discipline in reaction, not being provoked by outside judgments or taunts. These 3 levels together create the solid foundation for a long journey. There will be days when you feel discouraged, lonely, unrecognized. At that very moment, the power of silence helps you preserve calmness. Remember, you do not build a castle with a single brick, but with thousands of bricks placed silently, day after day. Each small, disciplined act is a brick, and silence is the mortar binding them together so that the entire structure stands strong against trials. When you remain steadfast in silence, you generate a kind of energy that is not easily seen, but deeply enduring. It is like the underground current beneath the earth, unseen, yet nourishing trees, filling wells, sustaining life. Invisible consistency works the same way. It quietly nurtures long-term success, rather than blazing briefly only to burn out. Look back at the truly enduring achievements in life. All of them were built through consistency, not bursts of impulse. A healthy body does not come from a week of clean eating, but from years of discipline. A solid career does not come from a few months of effort, but from years of perseverance. A deep relationship does not come from loud promises, but from steady presence and care given in silence. If you want to break through, learn to stay silent before criticism, silent before the temptation to boast, silent before the fleeting urges that make you want to quit. Stay silent to hear your inner voice, and disciplined enough to turn that voice into reality. Do not chase instant recognition. When you are consistent enough, time itself will testify for you. The ultimate result is this: you do not need to prove yourself to anyone, you only need to stay loyal to your path. Silence and discipline will turn you into someone others cannot ignore, even if you never brag. Invisible consistency is the most powerful weapon, for it is lasting, quiet, but always present. And one day, you will realize that the entire silent journey has been the solid foundation for your life to rise high. When looking back on the whole journey, you will realize that for so many years, people have spent too much energy merely seeking recognition. You may have lived for a nod, a round of applause, or a glance of approval from others. But all of that passes like the wind, leaving behind an emptiness even greater than before you began. Only when you turn inward do you see that true meaning is not found in what others think of you, but in who you have become throughout that journey. Recognition comes and goes, but the self you cultivate each day is what remains. A victory pursued only for show will fade with memory, but a victory built on discipline, inner strength, and your silence will forge a resilience no one can take away. You do not need the world to crown you with a title, because titles can change. What matters is that you know how much you have truly grown. Living for recognition keeps you dependent. You will constantly adjust yourself according to others' gaze, like a ship that must keep changing course for fear of losing attention. But when you choose to live to become, you stand rooted in a steady axis. You can welcome praise, but you do not need it. You can receive criticism, but you are not shaken. That strength comes from knowing what you are building, and that every step you take is firm, whether or not anyone sees it. Imagine this. If each day you continue doing what is right, continue practicing your habits, continue keeping clarity within yourself, then after a year, you will become an entirely different version of yourself. Perhaps no one applauds, no one mentions your name, but you know you have advanced far. And that truth does not need to be proven or broadcast. It is present in the way you walk, in the way your eyes see life, in the calmness you bring wherever you go. To live this way, you must let go of one thing, the need to be defined by others, because only when you no longer live to prove yourself are you truly free to create. No one binds you to narrow expectations. You choose your goals, you walk your own path, and you take full responsibility. That is a life more difficult, but also richer, because it belongs to you. Remember, those who leave the greatest legacy are not the ones who chase after instant recognition. They are the ones who quietly refine themselves in the dark, sometimes misunderstood, mocked, even forgotten. But it is precisely that persistence, without the need for the spotlight, that builds explosive strength later on. That is why the important question is not who is watching you, but who are you becoming when no one is watching. The end of this journey is not truly an end, but the beginning of a new way of living. To live not in search of recognition, but to become each day a deeper, clearer, stronger version of yourself. Until one day, you need no introduction, no explanation. Your very presence will be the clearest testimony of the path you have walked. And then, recognition, if it comes, will only be a natural consequence. But even if it does not, you will not need it, because you already have something far more valuable. You have truly become.